Well, it's been an eventful week. My kiddo broke his arm. As far as breaks go, it's not a bad one. Don't worry, hopefully it's gonna heal just fine. But we did have to go to the hospital for some x-rays and a cast. And the hospital is not exactly the place you want to be during a pandemic. So yeah, in case I get COVID-19 and don't make it, let my parting words to you be, don't forget the salt. If possible, diamond crystal kosher, of course. All right, on a happier note, I now have one more mouth to feed. Oh, look at him, isn't he cute? Yes, it's a sourdough starter. I mean, everybody was doing it, so I kind of jumped on the bandwagon once I could buy more flour. In the early days of this mess, flour was very scarce, and I was scared to start wasting it, because when you feed a sourdough starter, you constantly have to throw it away and add more flour. But now I lucked out, got a couple of bags of, big bags of King Arthur unbleached all-purpose. So here it is. We haven't named him yet, because we don't know if he'll make it. He does look suspicious. Like, on the second day it was rising really well, and then I don't know what happened. But anyway, in case you're wondering why do I have my sourdough starter in a French press? Well, they asked for a tall glass container, and here it is. How will I drink coffee? Well, the good news is that I personally don't drink coffee at home. I drink it if we go out sometimes, but at home I drink tea. I have a French press just for visitors, so if somebody is visiting me and they want coffee, I can make some. But since it's not bloody likely that anybody will be visiting us anytime soon, I thought I might just as well put the coffee press to some good use. If anything ever comes out of this thing and I ever bake something, I'll keep you posted. All right, so that's all the news, and now we're gonna get to our quarantine Q&A topic of the day, which is how do you feed everybody in your household 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day without burning out? Okay, so here I got some questions from you guys. Thank you so much. Many of you posted fabulous questions. We're gonna start with Lena Cully. The thing I'm struggling the most with is meal planning, not actual cooking. I used to go to the store every other day and see what looks good. Now I'm limiting grocery trips to once a week. So any tips on planning meals, grocery list are welcome. Man, I hear you, sister. I was totally the person who would go food shopping at least 3 times a week. And now I think I got myself down to about once every 10 days. So how do you live with this? Here's a related question from Maxie. I finally broke down and ordered takeout today. I'm just tired of all the mental energy that goes into it. Meal planning, buying, looking up recipes, prepping, cooking, begging my kid to eat, clean up dishes, rinse, repeat. And it is time for the next meal already. Yep. And so there are lots of you who have complained about washing dishes. Yeah, I hear you. So in case you're wondering if I'm tired of cooking yet, no, absolutely not. I love cooking. But the planning, the dishes, all that, I hear you guys. I struggle with the same stuff. So let's start with planning. To me, that's the most mental energy, which is just annoying. So first things first, type up your shopping lists and save them. I never start a shopping list from scratch. I just do what I did last week, or since it's no longer a week, it's about 10 days. You get yourself on some sort of cycle, make a shopping list, and do the same thing over and over every 7 days or 10 days or 14 days, whenever you're shopping. So when you're gonna show up to the store, they're not gonna have everything, right? So on top, I always put, I don't know if you can see this well, but yeah, No, still no. Okay, I'll link to it in the description below the video. But on top, I always put what I'm planning to serve each day. It doesn't always work out like this, but that's at least the plan. This way, and then on the bottom, the last two columns are the ingredients organized by category, so that I don't have to run all over the store. Oh, because I forgot the potatoes and I'm already in the fish department. All my produce is together, all my meat and fish is together, etc. So, usually they'll have, you know, I'd say maybe 70% of stuff I wanted to buy, and they won't have the other stuff. So I can easily see, oh, I needed fennel for the cod stew. Oh, it's okay, I can just buy this other thing. So I can easily see, what did I need this ingredient for, and substitute with something else. Sometimes you end up with nice dishes that you didn't anticipate because of that substitution, and sometimes not. So if it worked out really well, I intentionally add that to next week's menu, because it's already a tried and true thing and I don't have to look up recipes. You want to get over this whole looking up recipes thing. You want to get this cycle of dishes so like into your muscle memory that you can just pull them off without looking anything up. If anybody in your household starts whining that you're feeding them the same thing over and over, tell them to shut up and cook their own food. There. Oh yeah, and if some kid's not eating something, there's always the next meal. One of my kids is a little bit of a picky eater, so some days there's this part of me that keeps trying to encourage him to eat, and then I just remind myself to back off, and it's his business. All right, so so that's the shopping list. Another thing I try to do when I'm choosing menu items is cook once, eat many, many times. So lunch, for example, we've been doing lots of soups, just soup and bread. That's it. Somebody asked me if I have any recommendations for multi-course meals. At the moment, I don't remember when was the last time I cooked or ate a multi-course meal. Lately, it's just one course. So yeah, soups are great. You can make a huge pot of it. You can even freeze many soups, put them in the fridge, and then you just warm them up. It requires one pot to warm up. So it really minimizes the dishes some. Another thing that I've been doing a lot is things like one protein plus one vegetable. That's kind of my normal way of eating anyway. So tons of, on my shopping list, tons of things here, I know you can't see it very well, are fish and vegetable. Fish and vegetable. And I don't care about which fish goes with which vegetable. Like if it's going to be swordfish and butternut squash, great. And if it's going to be trout and broccoli, also great. I really don't care. As long as the fish tastes good and the vegetable tastes good, it doesn't need to be a match made in heaven or anything like that. And we've been doing a lot of roasted chickens, and I don't do one, I do two. The nice thing with the roasted chickens is that you can roast both of them and then usually we eat the legs the first day. Then I save all the breast meat for chicken salad and for putting into soup. I make stock out of the leftover carcasses. Tell everybody not to throw away their bones from wings and legs. Save all of that. Put that in the pot to make your stock. And then I will end up with about 2 meals worth of soup and 1 or 2 meals worth of chicken salad. Nah, more like 1 meal of chicken salad. And that has been working great. That's like you bought 2 things and you ended up 2 chickens with 4 meals. And because I'm doing it over and over again, every 10 days, you know, you really get into this rhythm, and so it's not as much planning and mental energy. Yes, it is still a lot of just doing stuff in the kitchen, and it is still dishes. But if you're trying to do like meals where you serve a salad or a soup and then a meat or fish with a starch and a vegetable, to me, that's a complete overkill for normal cooking. If you're so inspired and you want to do it once in a while, that's great. But if you're doing it just because you feel you should be doing it, oh, come on, stop. All right, so that's the planning part. Oh, and here's another thing that I try to do is whenever I'm shopping, I try to pick up a whole bunch of stuff that's pantry items, like for example, beans, lentils, split peas, farro, quinoa, stuff like that, that I can turn into a meal without having to go grocery shopping. Like if I had to stretch it, if suddenly I feel like we're out of perishables, but I still don't want to go shopping, I can always make some sort of farro risotto or something like that. And another thing that's I think will be helpful for you guys is to figure out how to deal with produce. I think we're actually going to have a question about that. So never mind, I'll deal with it when I get to that question. Let's see, here's a question from Ross B. I've been trying to just go to the store once every couple of weeks. However, I'm not quite sure the best way to keep produce and herbs that long. There's that question. I'm used to prepping for 1 week, but 2 is a bit more of a challenge. All right, so let's talk about produce, right? So, to me, all produce falls into 2 categories. One category is the stuff you probably have to use within a week, and the other category is stuff that will happily live for weeks, maybe even longer. The stuff you want to use within a week is leafy greens. Not all of them, but like salads, things like that. Salads, also cruciferous vegetables that are somewhat delicate. Broccoli, cauliflower. You want Swiss chard, you want to try to use that up within a week. And then there are things that can live for a very long time. Butternut squash or any winter squashes, root vegetables, parsnips, carrots, beets, celery root, rutabagas, all of those can live for weeks and weeks and weeks in your fridge. So I usually try to get some of both. During the first week, I'll be using those more perishable veggies, and then during the second week, I'll be using the ones that last longer. I also try to stock my freezer with tons and tons of frozen peas that can last forever, and frozen peas are fantastic. I know there are other frozen veggies, but a lot of them are okay, while frozen peas are great. A dish I recently made was I just cooked some farro and I pureed frozen peas. I defrosted them and then pureed them with some cream and lemon juice, lemon zest, whole bunch of parsley, and it turned into this beautiful, vibrant green sauce, and I mixed it with farro, so it was like this really nice green risotto. You can just serve them as a side dish, you can put them in soups. Green peas are awesome. So I try to have those 2 categories of produce. With that more perishable type of stuff, like herbs, you know, cilantro, dill, things like that are leaves, Swiss chard and kale, you want to process them as soon as you bring them home. This is not just COVID-19, this is just my normal operating procedure. It just happens to work really well when you can't go food shopping for a long time. As soon as you bring them home, unwrap that bundle, because if it has even one rotten leaf, it's going to make the rest of the stuff spoil. So remove everything rotten. Then you want to wash and spin them in a salad spinner, get rid of sand, spin them dry as you can, and then wrap them in a dry paper towel. And the point of the dry paper towel is to absorb the remaining moisture. Moisture promotes spoilage. So you want to get rid of that moisture and then put them into some big plastic container or a big plastic bag. So I usually have the huge, here it is, my wonderful box. One sec, I'll show you. Here is my veggie box. As you can see, I'm in the end of my cycle. I already used up all my greens, but it's like this huge plastic box. It's called the fish box in restaurants. People get fish in this, but you can just go to Target, get some sort of plastic box. I bet you already have a plastic box. And so wrap it all up in paper towels. And I usually wrap each vegetable in its own paper towel so I can easily separate them and store in the fridge. Now, how long do you have? It depends on the vegetable. If it's something like mint or basil, they are pretty perishable. But parsley you can usually stretch it for 2 weeks or at least 10 days. Kale, colored greens, those are great. Those will last 2 weeks usually, as long as you processed them, removed everything rotten. It's gonna be awesome. All right, so that's my suggestion for vegetables. and buying them for long periods of time. Our next question is from Andrew Mendez. What are your thoughts on canned potatoes? Sure, canned potatoes are great. I mean, I haven't used them for a while, but in my college days, I surely did. You know what you can do? Buy those little round canned potatoes and cut them in half, toss them in a pan with some butter to crisp them up. And that's awesome. Maybe throw in a garlic clove to kind of make the whole thing aromatic. Next question, also from Andrew. What can you add to rice to make it less blah? Oh my gosh, rice is a blank slate, so anything goes. But I'll try to talk about some things that you guys might not have thought of already. I really like herby rice. So what you could do, if you have some herb leftovers, maybe you have some parsley or cilantro, throw that into a blender with some water. Not too much water, so you have kind of like a thick, not thick, it's not going to be super thick, it's going to be pourable, but not super watery puree. And just buzz it until you get a pureed parsley. And then after your rice is done cooking, pour in that pureed herb and throw in some butter and you'll get green rice. It's very tasty. Of course, you can do saffron, you can do Spanish smoked paprika, you can soak dry porcini and use their liquid, that mushroomy liquid, to cook your rice in. That's delicious. Unfortunately, I couldn't find dry porcinis for like 2 weeks in a row and I ran out of my stash, so I really miss them. I miss dry porcini. So that's some rice ideas for you. All right. Did I say saffron? Yeah, saffron is yummy with rice. Okay. Next question, also from Andrew. What is your favorite canned vegetable? Not tomatoes. Beets. I love canned beets. Oh, okay. I shouldn't use that word too strongly. No, normal beets are better, but if I had to use a canned vegetable, I wouldn't use a green vegetable. I hate green, canned green beans. That's disgusting. But canned beets totally work, Chop them up, make a little salad, or grate them and toss with a little very fatty Greek yogurt or sour cream. Makes fabulous spread. A little garlic. Don't forget the salt. That would be great. All right. And also Andrew Mendez, what's the best way to cook frozen vegetables so that they are not disgusting mush? Okay, so one thing to keep in mind with frozen vegetables is that they are already cooked. They're not freezing raw vegetables, they are blanching them, so shucking them in boiling water, then ice water, and then freezing them. So you don't need to cook them. What I suggest you do is just defrost them. Here's how I usually do it. Take a pot, put a little bit of water on the bottom, like a couple of millimeters, put your frozen vegetable in. Cover. Turn on the heat to high so that the whole thing steams, and once in a while stir it just until the vegetable stops being cold and is hot. But like as soon as it's hot, that's it, you're done. Drain, add some butter, salt, lemon juice or lime juice or whatever acidity you want, and that's it. And for green beans, frozen green beans are not nearly as bad as canned green beans. So if I was doing some sort of vegetable medley, I would definitely go with frozen vegetables. And there are some that they sell with green beans and broccoli and carrots and stuff like that. Next question from Paparina. Do you have easy, delicious sauces and condiment recipes that we can use while cooking quick meals on weekdays? Of course. So Google for Helen Rennie Ramesco YouTube. Ramesco is a great sauce, lasts in the fridge for a while. If it separates a little bit, just stir it. It's made with almonds and roasted peppers and sun-dried tomatoes and Spanish smoked paprika. Goes well on pretty much anything. You can put it on top of fish and chicken and into your turkey sandwich. Just dunk bread into it. My favorite sauces to make on a regular basis are actually herb sauces. Think like pesto, but don't lock yourself into pesto. Has to be basil, pine nuts, Parmesan cheese, olive oil. You can play with the herb. Usually I do it out of whatever herb I have left over that I'm trying to use up. It could be parsley, cilantro, mint. Play with the nut. It doesn't have to be pine nuts, like parsley and walnuts is a great combination, or mint and pistachios. It's really yummy. If you want to add garlic, you can. Just be careful, not too much garlic, because the throat could be overpowering. You could go with just oil or also add a little butter. It It's fabulous with butter, and just buzz it all together. And those herb sauces are great. You can stir them into rice. You can top any protein with them. So try that. All right. Now, what are the longest... Oh, this is a question from 1980, Arlequin. What are the longest lasting dishes that can be stored for later, which are okay to freeze and reheat? So braises are your friends, stews and braises. That's like when the meat is browned and then you make a sauce and then you cook the meat in the sauce long and slow. Usually people think of Dutch oven, or some people do it in slow cookers or pressure cookers. I like, it doesn't have to be Dutch oven, but I like a normal traditional way of doing it. I have a whole bunch of them on my channel. Google for Helen Rennie short ribs YouTube and Helen Rennie Boston butt YouTube. Boston butt is a pork shoulder. Those are amazing with freezing because during a braising process, pretty much all the liquid, all the moisture is gone from the meat. It all went into the sauce. That meat freezes great because what destroys meat during freezing is water. Water expands when it freezes and rips the cell membranes and then oozes out of your meat, and bye-bye goes juiciness. But braises are not juicy. Braises are very soft and kind of fall apart, tender and saucy. So what you can do is make a huge pot of stew or pulled pork, something like that, and freeze it in Ziploc bags and little portions. If you want freezing instructions, in my video on Boston butt, the pork shoulder, I give them explicitly, I think. So Google for that. So those are my favorite to freeze. Other things that freeze very well are beans. If you want to just cook a ton of dry beans and then freeze them, you have to cool them in their cooking liquid, and then once they're cooled overnight, you drain them and store your liquid separately from your beans. Put all your beans in like some sort of container or Ziploc bag, and all your liquid in some sort of jar and freeze them. Then whenever you need a quick meal, you can just pull out some beans and make a salad or make a soup out of them. So that's another thing that freezes exceptionally well. And some soups, you know, if you made the bean soup, lentil soup, all of those freeze really well after they are made. I would just warn you about freezing soups with potatoes. Potatoes do not freeze well, so that's one thing, but I would maybe try not to freeze if possible. And also all the stuff that freezes well also can live in your fridge for a very long time. So if you made a batch, there's no need to eat it all in 2 days. You can eat it for the entire week. All right, moving right along. Next question is from Angel Bulldog. Helen, one thing I think might be helpful for many of us is to transform leftovers into something reimagined. For instance, I turned orange chicken and jasmine rice into soup. Great idea. Even as long as I've been cooking 60 plus years, I run out of ideas. Sometimes think, okay. So yeah, how do you transform it into something reimagined? So it depends on what you have leftovers of. If you have leftovers of some protein, and by the way, let's define leftovers, because I'm the kind of person who, if I just need to feed my family, I'll make a bunch of stuff like stew or soup, and we'll eat that for several days. I really don't believe that every meal needs to be different. So if I'm just reheating a stew, in my opinion, that's not leftovers. That's just a normal meal. Most stews taste best the next day anyway. So leftovers is when you have a little bit of something and it's not enough to be a meal. It's like you need 4 portions and you've got enough for 2. Okay, so if that stuff is vegetables or protein, pizza. Pizza is great. I have a super easy pizza dough recipe. Google Helen Rennie pizza YouTube. And by the way, this is from the old days when the videos had to be short, or at least they told us that. And so I broke it down into 2 videos, actually 3 videos. There's one for dough, one for shaping and baking, and one for grilling. So add pizza dough or pizza baking or pizza grilling. So, but anyway, so you can use that to make a great pizza dough. Takes about 5 minutes, and then put your leftovers on top, because anything can go on pizza. Anything can go into tacos. So that's great if you need to bulk it up because you don't quite have enough chicken or whatever you're putting in. Cook some rice, cook some beans, open a can of beans just to stretch it a little bit. Soups, you know, are great, just like you said. Take all that stuff and add some stock or water. You know, water is totally fine to use in soups, and that will stretch it out a little bit also. If you have leftover grains, I love putting grains in soups. Like if I have a little bit of leftover farro or quinoa, that goes really well in soups. Yeah, and what else can I say? I think that's about it. So thank you so much for all your questions. Keep cooking, keep being curious. And I'm sorry there's nothing I can do about dishes. If it makes you feel any better, my 9-year-old just learned to do dishes. Not pots and pans, but like loading plates and cups into a dishwasher. So we promoted my 12-year-old to doing pots and pans, and 9-year-old was doing basic dishes. And after doing that for only 2 weeks, he broke his arm. So now we're back to where we started. We're all pitching in with dishes the best we can. And yeah, dishes are tough. What are you gonna do? So thank you so much for coming to my quarantine Q&A. Bye-bye.